We'd just like to welcome Adrian to the Regional Football Hub. We certainly appreciate your time coming on to share your journey from when you started in Dubbo to when you went through to play for your country, Melbourne Victory, and also being able to play overseas. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Excellent. So we're just going to start with a few quick questions, and then we'll get into sharing your journey. So who's the funniest player that you've ever played with in your teams, and practical joker or just a funny guy to have in the change rooms?
I've probably got two, Kevin Muscat and Grant Brebner, who were Victory boys. I always say to them now that I since I retired, I've never had as much fun as we once did. So they were boys that always got the dressing room rocking.
Cool.
I guess before we get into more football things, what's your favourite sport outside of football?
I'm a bit of a sports tragic. So obviously growing up in Dubbo, rugby league's one which I'm sort of big on. I actually work in that space now. And AFL I'm also a big fan of. So as long as there's competition, I'm into it. So I'll watch anything.
Awesome. Who are your two favourite teams in those codes, mate?
Geelong Cats. Geelong Cats down here because that's where I went to school once we moved down to Victoria. And in rugby league, I've got to be a bit careful because I work with a lot of players in every team. So it's I'll just say the New South Wales Blues.
Love it. Do you have any bad habits or a worst habit?
I've got plenty of bad habits, I suppose, but my worst, I don't know. I'm not very good at sitting still and just relaxing. So, that's one thing that even when I'm on holidays, I'm always looking for something to do. So that's probably the thing that's kind of good, but kind of bad. So depends. Probably ask my wife.
So back, you're still playing now, and they may have carried through. But did you have any pre-match superstitions that you had to do? Maybe left sock on first or something like that?
Yeah, I was pretty superstitious my whole career. I don't know if it's superstition. I'd almost say it was just habit. My coach at the VIS since I was 14 through till I was about 25, he took over at Victory. He always said, don't get into superstitions and things like that. But I used to, every day it was always left foot, left sock, left boot, always wear the same jocks. And then my routine was always the same. So I was I think a lot of athletes are the same. They're pretty regimented, and I was certainly one like that.
Awesome. Favourite food, favourite beer or drink?
I'm enjoying the beers at the moment now, retired. Not too many, but I went through a phase there where I did enjoy it. But look, I just love an Aussie barbecue. Living all over the world, it's sort of something you crave, and getting home to one of those is always good. Favourite drink, I don't really have one. I'm trying to stay pretty healthy, so probably on the kombucha at the moment.
Fair enough.
Wowza. You can answer this one if you're brave enough, but which manager's given you the worst spray?
I probably copped the worst sprays in Korea. So the good thing was I couldn't understand them, but they used to lock us in the room for a long time. The Korean boys, it was such a they had to show so much respect to their elders, so they just bowed their heads and didn't say a word. So they were pretty full on. Luckily, my translator picked and chose what he said to me, so I really don't know the truth of what was behind them.
Awesome. You're having a dinner party, mate. Who's the first couple of people you invite, and who's a couple of people that you're not inviting on your list?
Well, I've been watching the Jordan documentary, so I'd like him there. He's a pretty impressive character. God, who don't I invite? I don't know. I mean, you come across certain players throughout your career you play with and against. Who I'm sure there's a few on there which I wouldn't really like to name, but look, I'm a sports tragic, so Jordan would be one. God, don't even know where to go from here. And then I'll just say the boys I had most fun with, Muskie and Brebsy. They were guys that I love hanging around with and still do, and haven't had a beer with them for a while. So that'd be a good one.
Nice.
I guess aside from Melbourne Victory, favourite football team in the world?
Well, my mum was born in Manchester, so I'm a Red. So I've got an excuse why I'm a United supporter.
It's better than being a City one.
Yeah, I know.
So you started in Dubbo. Your first club was SAS. What do you remember about your time playing in Dubbo? Did you only play with SAS until you moved? What do you recall of your time back then?
My first club was Newtown. I think a lot of the information out there says SAS, but I started under my dad coached my brother's team under sixes. He was the Newtown Demons. I started playing in that team just when I think I just annoyed mum and dad enough, so they threw me on. Then my team was Newtown Saints, and I played with Newtown for a long time, and pretty much would play my morning games in my team and then the afternoon games in my brother's team. So I used to kick about with his mates a lot. And then it got to a point where I don't think I was allowed to play up an age group anymore. So I went to SAS, and that's where we played a lot of rep. A lot of the rep boys played in that team. So we had a good squad and had some success. My time in Dubbo was brilliant. Looking back and the memories that I have growing up in the country, playing all sorts of sports, weekends, playing against Bathurst, Orange, Lithgow, in those sort of Sunday comps were awesome. We got a great group of friends who I still speak to a lot of those guys now from that time. And back then, you don't even really, I suppose I didn't have a belief that I could actually do something with my career. I always, said I'd like to, but I didn't really, I suppose, believe that I could. And, now I'm finished. It's given me a chance to reflect on those years, and they were probably, they were awesome years, and, times that you just don't get back.
Fair enough. I'm just going to share a quick little photo here with you. So you played 1 year at Nationals with New South Wales Country, and then also moved to Victoria. In the second year, you played with Victoria Country. How important was those tournaments for you in terms of your stepping stone, and what memories do you have of those tournaments in terms of you then being able to go on and forge a career in football?
I think every tournament you play in is vital, and I'd go back even earlier. The tournaments where I represented Dubbo, the tournaments where I represented Western Region. I remember we went to China with a Western Region team. I think it would have been under 13s, which was just a hell of an experience to get international football at that age. And that, later when I was fortunate enough to go and play in China, those memories or those experiences from when I was younger really helped with all of that. So, every tournament you're playing is huge to get. I was one who never really believed in myself a lot, and so for me to get named in that New South Wales Country was a big thing. And then over the progression over the next couple of years sort of took it to the next level. But it was they were pretty special times. No matter who you were representing, you're always representing a region, and it always made you proud.
It's interesting you say a lack of confidence. What point did you start believing in yourself? What point did you resonate that that could make something out of playing this game?
I probably never did. If I'm honest, I always, and I suppose that's probably what pushed me to have success, because I always had to work really hard to get the most out of myself. I was never the most talented player on the pitch, or this was from under 10s all the way through. So I always found that I was trying to find that edge one way or another, and doing all the extras, and ultimately that's probably why I had a career in the end.
Cool. So you ended up at the Victorian Institute of Sport after playing for Victorian country teams, and Ernie was there. What was that experience, having Ernie as an institute coach, and then obviously later on having Ernie as a Melbourne Victory coach? What differences did you see in Ernie, and do you think that was unknown to you a good footing for later when obviously Victory signed you?
Yeah, it was, and we moved down here. I think it was after the 2000 Olympics. We played in a country tournament in Griffith, I think, and then moved down. I'd just been invited to trial at N-Swiss, and Dad was kicking himself thinking we were doing the wrong thing. But fortunate enough, it all worked out, and ended up getting invited to the VIS and playing for Vic Country against all my mates in New South Wales Country, which was kind of weird, but yeah, it was just it was a blessing, I suppose, to get that opportunity at the VIS. It's where I learnt really to be a professional and what it took to take to that next level. And again, I moved to the country down here, so I was always the country kid mixing it with the city kids, and it was challenging at times, but I think you sort of forge friendships, and my 4 best mates now from football are all guys that I played in the VIS with. So they've had decent careers themselves, but those were the sort of foundations and the memories that we have together all the way back to then. And as you said, Ernie became my coach and sort of took me under his wing for the best part of 10 years. And he rode me pretty hard once we got to professional level, because I suppose he knew me pretty well and could send a message through me to other players. And so at times you sort of thought he was on your back, but he was fantastic for my career.
Great.
Having playing in so many squads, and you obviously have so many sessions and games on, what did you do away from your structured football to get yourself to become a professional?
I think probably for the people listening, probably growing up, I probably didn't play as much football as I should have. I was always, distracted with other sports and things like that, particularly in Dubbo. And I got to the age of, I think it was about 14, after the nationals and things like that, and got told that if you want to make a profession of this, or you want to have a real go at it, then this is going to have to be your sport. So I think once I did that, that's when I really, pushed on and improved a lot. And I think my real improvement was when I got into the professional environment, where I was training every day and touching the ball every day and being pushed every day, because you were surrounded by, players like Kevin Muscat and Archie Thompson and these guys who you probably didn't deserve to be on the same pitch as them at that time. But, you didn't want to let yourself down in front of them. So you pushed yourself and, rose to the next level. And that's probably the thing that I was able to do. I was able to, every time I got tested, I could lift myself. And that's, it probably ran throughout my career. Whenever there was a big game or something, I'd always sort of take my game to a new level. And when I play the sort of so-called easier games, I'd probably drop a little bit. So that's one thing that I suppose I was always proud on. Whenever there's a big game on you, I'd stand up.
So you look at country kids, obviously having that added pressure of travel and to play at that high level. How did that affect you in your earlier years?
Yeah, that followed me for a while. I remember, my old man was awesome. He'd take me everywhere. He used to have a Volkswagen Combi van, which we'd drive around the country, New South Wales, and we'd park up somewhere, have a sleep. We'd roll in the next morning and play our games. So, they're good times. And my old man he always said that I had to buy him a new car. I didn't quite get to that stage, but I bought a house about 100 metres away from him. So he just said to me, "Promise me you don't sell that, and we'll be all right."
Was it something that affected you at all, do you think, in travel, having to sort of wake up and play, or it didn't really faze you?
Oh, it didn't faze me. I think you get used to it. Like even when I moved down here, the VIS was a 3-hour round trip for me. So it's probably hardest on my family. I'd either leave school at 2:00, jump on a train, get to training on my own, and then Dad would pick me up from training. So that didn't change throughout the whole time. And then the next one was when I went to Melbourne Knights in the last year of the NSL, and that was sort of 6 days a week, and I was doing year 12. So, without my parents, I suppose parents, brother, grandparents, everyone. Without them all chipping in, it wouldn't be possible. So, people in the country understand that, and I think the parents also love doing it. So it's one part that you're forever grateful for that time that they put into it.
Yep.
You mentioned you played other sports as a kid. What were they, and were you good at them?
Was I good at them? I was okay. I represented Western at state in athletics and swimming. And then the rest, I represented Western in rugby union, schoolboy rugby union. So I used to play school rugby league and all those things, and it's just what you do there. And I think, the way I played, I wasn't the most technical player, but I sort of put my body on the line as country boys do, and that sort of helped me a long way during my career.
Speaking of sort of school, co-captain, obviously at school, into captain of one of the biggest A-League clubs with Melbourne Victory. Would you say growing up you're always someone who was a leader?
Yeah, I think so. I think particularly on the park and where I played, centre of defence. I don't know where that sort of came from. It wasn't something that I, aspired to or anything. And, when I got the letter to say that I made the New South Wales country team, I wasn't even sure that I was going to make the team. And then, I saw that I was captain as well. So it started at a pretty young age with all that stuff. And then I captained the Fulham reserves once we got over there. Captained Victory, captained, Vic country as well. So it's something I enjoyed. I always, I suppose I always set pretty high standards off the park, and that was probably one of the reasons why I held a lot of those positions too.
Like it. You mentioned your dad was obviously someone who was influential in your early youth career. Was there any other coaches, people, players that you sourced out in making the transition from playing Dubbo football stuff to then New South Wales country, Vic country, VIS? Was there anyone that jumps out as someone who was pretty influential to you?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably guys that are still there. Bryson Reese, we had the Western Region Academy of Sport. He took that on a Monday night in Dubbo. Richard Evans was around then as well. He used to do a lot with us. A couple of coaches in Dubbo, Greg Markwick, Mick Kelly. And then, I think what I remember most is probably growing up and thinking, when I was in the Academy of Sport, there was a player who was sort of involved in an NSL side. I think it was Canberra Cosmos, and I just thought that was the bee's knees. I never thought I'd even get close to that. We went to I think we played in a curtain raiser for a game, I think, where Alex Tobin broke the NSL appearance record, and we got to go in the rooms after the game and things like that, and I just never even contemplated getting to that level. But then when you sort of do, I think you don't really change at all. Like, you sort of don't sort of think you're above anyone or done anything special. It's sort of, you just get on with it and do your job. So it's easy to forget that you can be a bit of a role model to the kids in the country. And I always looked up to guys from Dubbo who did things. Daniel Baitup was one. You might not remember him, but he was probably the best player in our academy, and I always sort of looked up to him as a player, and I actually was in touch with him a couple of months ago. So it's good to be in touch with these boys from back then.
We often talk about the negatives of country football. What do you think some pros have been about being a country footballer?
Yeah, I think, as I said, playing a lot of sports probably, helps you be pretty rounded. You learn to sort of take hits and do all that sort of thing from other sports, and you're always out there being active, and I just loved playing any sport. There are a lot of cons. I think it is difficult, and it is tougher. I think the technical, I wish I spent a lot more time on the technical side of my game. But then the way I made a career was because I was a good defender, and I knew how to put my body on the line. I knew how to get stuck in when I had to. I learned pretty early how to read the game, and that that takes a long time for kids to do that. So I think, look, you just got to make the most of every situation. Everyone has a story, and we're pretty lucky in this country with what we've got. So it's you just sort of run with it, and I was lucky.
Another massive milestone for you was to obviously represent your country and do that at the 17s, 20s, 23s, and the Socceroos as well. Sum that up, obviously it's a massive milestone.
Yeah, I when you guys got in touch, I sort of thought about back to the times where you start thinking about that sort of stuff, and it was at a Western Region Academy of Sport. I think it was a trial day, and they gave us a piece of paper which was a pyramid of what milestones you had to hit, and they were all on there, and like I didn't even think that I'd get even one of them, and that's something that always sort of stuck in my mind, that I actually climbed that pyramid. And the thing that annoys me the most is I only got one Socceroo cap, but look, I got there, and I had awesome memories with the other junior sides, and travelled the world and got to see things that I wouldn't have got to do if it wasn't for football.
I guess one of those things we got to see was you travelled over in the squad for the Olympics. What was that experience like?
Yeah, that was cool, and that was probably like 21, 22-year-old. You're travelling the world, and not the Olympics itself. I think it was all the other stuff. We played in North Korea. Our final qualifier was in North Korea. We played in countries like Jordan, Iran, some pretty sort of scary places. And it was just an insane sort of 18 months leading into the tournament. We did really well. The qualifiers was a really hard slog and tough slog, but we got there. And from a personal point of view, my actual Olympic experience was disappointing. They brought in an overage player who took my spot, which didn't really sit well with me because of the effort that we put in to get there. But that's the way football goes sometimes, and you have your highs and you have your lows, and it's just part of learning and moving on.
How did you cope doing that? Obviously, after the disappointment of not being able to play and being an integral part of getting there, what did you have to do mentally after that point to focus on the next part of your football?
Yeah, to be honest, I struggled a fair bit. I was at Fulham at the time and had a really good period leading into the Olympics, and had some good feedback following the season. And then after the Olympics, when I hadn't played for I missed the whole pre-season, didn't play at the Olympics. I was way behind when I got back, and that sort of still annoys me, because I knew if someone actually said to me before going to the Olympics that I should maybe not go, maybe I should just focus on my club football. And the thing is, though, when you're a kid and all you want to be is an Olympian, you're not going to say no to it. So yeah, look, it took me a while to get over that, and it probably was one of the main reasons why I did come home from the UK, because I just needed to play first team football again. And a part of my career, which I think sometimes if that went differently, maybe things would have turned out differently. But it is what it is, and I made the choices I made.
You obviously had some character. You come back, you were the second player to play 150 games for Melbourne Victory, and then obviously got the armband as well. And I think, just as a side note, when I watched you when you were a little player, 13, 14-year-olds, I think you were a far bigger influence on the games and as a player than you obviously give yourself credit for. But what can you tell us about the culture at Melbourne Victory over the time that you were there, the changes? What did you like about the club? What was it like? Yeah,
I think that's why Ernie was such a good coach and is proven to be successful in other parts. He set that from the start. Kevin Muscat as well was another one who's a phenomenal leader. He's someone that I can't speak highly enough of Kevin and what he did for me in my career. And then the chairman, who's the current chairman now, Anthony DiPietro, he was a board member at the start, but just a really good family man, and he was young when he started there, and I've developed a close family friendship with him over the years, and he sort of sets the tone of the club. And then, you've got influential people like Ernie, Kevin Muscat, Ange Postecoglou, who really picked it up when it needed to be picked up. And I think at this current point, we're looking for another Ange Postecoglou type character to come in and set the standards again and get it, functioning the way that it should be.
So you mentioned time at Fulham. Obviously, you're still quite a young age and packed up and went over to the UK. I remember reading you were one of the youngest players there and you were pushed quite hard. How was that experience to be involved in such a big club?
Oh, it was awesome. It was it was mind-blowing for me, just the whole, a boy from Dubbo, next thing you're sitting in the club rooms at Fulham and the owner flies in on his helicopter. So it's like, it was just a different world from what I was used to. And, but a hell of an experience, and you get to train, like I was sort of pushing first team, but wasn't quite ready for it. But still got to train with those guys every day and prepare them for the games. And, I got on the bench a few times, got told to warm up as if I was coming on once and thought I was going to make my Premier League debut, but didn't get there. So, look, an amazing experience, and just to live in London and experience that for a good couple of years was something that I'm grateful for. Yeah.
I remember reading, obviously you'd play resis and then most of you boys would have to back up and be at training to help support those boys. How was it like managing your load, having to do that as well?
Yeah, it was tough, and I got a pretty bad knee tendon injury as a result. I think it was just overtraining, and that sort of hampered me for a while there, probably 6 to 12 months, and ended up having a couple of surgeries on it. So, but that's the thing there. It's such a results-driven business. They don't really care unless you're going to be playing for the first team that weekend, sort of where you're at. So, it's just the way it was, and you're not going to complain, are you? Sort of, you're knocking on the door of the best league in the world, and you just got to soak it up where you can.
Yep. And obviously Smalling came in at a young age, and I know you took him under your wing a little bit. Do you take a little bit of credit to say where he's got at the moment?
Take all the credit. He slept on one of my couches, which I sold a few weeks ago, so that was my marketing strategy. He was a real good boy, and I'm not in touch with him anymore. Obviously, he's sort of gone on to bigger and better things. But he came from non-league and played the similar. We played next to each other for a good period in the resis, and I did help him out for quite some time. But once he got I used to get the tap on the shoulder to train with the first team, and then he started getting it. I was like, oh, all right, my time's up here. So. Look, but he's a great kid, and to see what he's done with his career has been fantastic.
You mentioned the Olympic period as a challenge for you. Was that probably your biggest challenge in football?
No way. It's I think you get challenged from when you start. As soon as you start the representative stuff, there's a new challenge. You get challenges, to step up to the New South Wales country team. Then it's to step up to the Aussie team. Then it's to, play well there and make sure you're there for a long period and things like that. Different coaches test you. You go through bad patches of form. Whether it's club level, international level, there's so much that challenges you throughout your career. Playing in China for me was probably the most challenging 12 months of my career. And then I spent the last 3 years in Korea, which again was a completely different beast as well. So they're different challenges, but they're good challenges. And I think, you learn from every single one, and you build a lot of resilience. Like you come out of your career and you're pretty resilient from the experiences that you have had.
I know you mentioned you didn't quite make your Premier League debut, but there was some games where you sat on the bench, and I'm a massive Liverpool fan. How was that experience to know you're up against one of the biggest clubs or the best club, sit on the bench against them?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah, it was. The funniest thing that day was there was a Victory fan that yelled out to me, and I was like, "Who the hell in this stadium knows who I am?" So, and then I saw him a few years later. He's like, "Oh, when you're at Anfield, I yelled out to you." So, it's you sort of got to pinch yourself. And then when we were at United, and I wasn't quite on the bench. I think I was a spare man, and I ended up getting Wayne Rooney's shirt after the game just by fluke. I think I pissed a few of the boys off, but I didn't really care. So they're pretty cool moments. But I suppose while you're there, it's almost, you can't say it's normal, but it is normal. And you just gotta sort of do what you're there to do.
What did you do with the Rooney shirt? Is it hanging in the living room?
I haven't even framed it yet. I've been meaning to for years. No, it's still in the cupboard, so I'll get to that one soon.
You mentioned playing overseas at in China, Korea, obviously England when you were earlier. What was the biggest differences in the training format? Were sessions longer, more often? Was there any really big differences between each of those countries compared to your time in Australia and Melbourne Victory?
Yeah, I think it's two different coaches. Like, I think the training that we got under Ange was probably the best training I've ever done. And I think that showed just the level that the team got to, and the quality of the training, the intensity of the training was always high. It was never really, really long, but every single thing you did was just at an insane pace, and the expectation was really high. Sometimes when you're playing under Ange, it was like, oh, I just need just one day to have a bit of an off day or a rest day or something, and it just didn't come. Even on your recovery days, your touch had to be spot on, and it was just, so he was demanding, and then when he left, you just want him back. You just like, that was so good. In terms of the UK, that obviously the quality's high, and the pace is high, and the players are a completely different level in terms of touch and how smart they are and things like that. So that was really good for me to learn at that age. And then going to China again, the Chinese players are really lazy. So you pretty much, it was like, play the game. Now just take it easy till the next game, make sure you're okay. It was not a very good way to sort of, the sharpness and the things like that sort of went, and it's really hard, and the level of the plays, very, very different. So for me, that was an insane time, because they're paying these players ridiculous amounts of money from all over the world to come and play there, and the quality of the whole setup was just so far behind what it should be. And then Korea was just it was just like going to military camp. So pre-season camp, we'd go into lockdown for 2 months. We'd go and spend 2 months in a hotel away from our families and things like that. And you'd train three times one day, twice the next, and then you'd get the Sunday off if you were lucky. So you were doing just ridiculous loads, and you'd just train, sleep, eat. My weight was, I just got really, really, really skinny, and you just got to sort of get on with it. So that's like I said, like those experiences are pretty cool when you look back on them. But when you're there, and when you're in camp, and you got like this 2-month calendar on your wall, just going, when is this going to finish? It's pretty tough.
How do you do with the food, especially in China and Korea? Obviously, having to adjust what you may normally eat during a week preparation-wise. Was that something that was a big factor?
Yeah, it was. I love Korean food, so that was pretty easy for me. And the Koreans were really, they sort of hold the foreigners. They really respect the foreigners and go out of the way for them. So that was good. China was tough. Like, you'd be having pre-match, and there'd just be a whole row of cakes, or a whole row, like just stuff like that, where you just like, how is this even possible? We'd have some big road trips. Boys would be getting on the bus with Maccas and things like that, and you just like, like you guys are professional and this is what you're doing. So that's what I like. Like I said, there's just these different challenges and different things that you have to deal with. And we played in North Korea. I think we took powdered milk and cereal, and we ate that for 2 or 3 days while we were there. And that was we had to win that, had to draw that game to qualify for the Olympics. So you just get on with it. That's all you can do. And I think, being from the country probably helps you that, because we're a little bit tougher.
I guess most people we interview have trouble with this question because there's so many, but if you could narrow it down to one, do you have a best moment in your career?
Yeah, my best moment would be the 07 grand final win, I think. We won that game 6-0. That was the first Victory Championship. It had just been a whirlwind couple of years, and that season I think we won the league by, I don't know how much it was, but we just seemed to win every week, and such a good group of boys. And we were just after every game we'd be out together. We just got on so well. We knew we were going to win every game, and then to sort of top it off with that was probably, that moment was the best moment in my career by far.
I guess fast forward a couple of years, and I know Shinji Ono, Del Piero, Heskey come over. What was that experience like?
Yeah, it was good. It's good for the league, those guys. And, Dwight York was the first one. And I signed at Victory thinking I was a chance to play maybe 3 to 5 games in the first season. And round 1, I was lining up against Dwight York, and being a Man U fan, it was like Christmas for me. So, look, those guys all have their place in the league, and I think we need to, the league needs to get back to bringing some real quality sort of foreigners, like your Shinji Onos and Dwight Yorks, and those guys that really made a difference, and they're the ones that can get people, really interested in the A-League again.
Best players that you've played with, and you've got to put them into a 5-a-side team.
Oh, geez. Need some heads up with this. Best players I've played with. So do I need a goalkeeper, do I?
Well, that's up to you. You have a flying player if you want.
I'll put Mark Schwarzer in goals. I was with him at Fulham. Muskie would be centre back. I'll put... God, he stumped me. Can't even think who I've played with. I've played with a boy in China who played for Boca Juniors. He's probably the best striker I've played. Gigliotti. Who am I going to put on the right? I'll put Broxy in there because he's one of my best mates, so he can play right back or right, whatever. And left, I'll put... give me one from Victory. Who's one from Victory?
Marco Rojas, surely.
Yeah, put Rojas there.
You didn't put yourself in there.
I'll coach.
Hardest players you've played against?
Hardest players. I don't know about hardest, but I'll probably say smartest. Del Piero was really, really smart, and although his legs had sort of gone on him, you could just tell on the park how smart he was, and if he had that agility that he once had, you would have been toast. So players like that. Got to play against Tim Cahill in China, so that was another a big one, because obviously he's an Australian sort of legend, and if he hadn't have gone there, I probably wouldn't have gone there, because I was really reluctant to go over, and once he'd signed, and I was like, oh, maybe this isn't such a bad thing after all. So to play against him was pretty special as well.
So post retiring from football, you started working at Adidas. How did that come about? And was it a tough decision to go into the workforce and give up playing? I mean, I know Western United were starting up when this kind of happened. Was that a tough decision or smart decision, or how did you see it? How did that land for you?
I always said and always had in the back of my mind that I wouldn't play for too long. I'd always enjoyed my sort of study and things like that. And I think when I left the A-League and went over to China, I almost made the decision then that I wouldn't play in the A-League again because I'd been and gone already once before and didn't really want to do it again. So I had a 4-year stint in China, in Asia to finish my career. And the Adidas scene came about because I had an injury in the final year, the final year of my career in Korea, and I did an internship at Adidas. And Jimmy Tansey, who was in charge of sports marketing, which is the job I do now, was retiring, and he said, "Look, if you're thinking of retiring, I'm going to retire. So put your hat in the ring," and I did, and I think I'm really lucky because I still had another year of my contract in Korea, and I basically decided. It was Christmas Eve. I got the job offer. I rang my club 4 days later and said I'm not going to come back. And I think I started work on the 3rd or 4th of January. So I didn't have that lull between being a pro footballer and entering the workforce. And I'm pretty blessed to be associated now with such a great company. And it's a brand that I was sponsored with since I was 16. So. I've had a long affiliation. I had a personal relationship with Jimmy, who was in the role before me, and he was in the role for 36 years. And I just feel really lucky to be surrounded by good people, and I still feel like I'm doing a bit of an apprenticeship and learning the ropes. But I think I'm in a good place to do that.
Yeah. I think if I wasn't in football, I'd want to work at Adidas. But anyway, I'd probably waste my money on all the clothes. But
yeah, it's a good brand.
Is there an interest in coaching, or are you waiting for your daughters to start playing?
Yeah, I've got 2 young girls, so they've shown a bit of athletic ability, but we'll see how that goes. That's probably what will make me do it if I ever do it. I don't have a desire to be a senior coach, but I do have a passion for helping others, and that in football that would mean helping kids. So if I do get to that stage, I'd love to sort of help out kids in some way or another. But for now, the main focus is my career, and I've got to transition from being a footballer into the commercial world, and that's what I'm doing now.
I read that you attended the Johan Cruyff Institute. What was that about, and how did it come about?
I don't know where you blokes are getting your information. Everything.
Except for the first club, we got that one wrong. Anyway.
Yeah, you got the first club wrong, which is the most important one. That came about. It was just a way of a form of study, and I always, it's probably from Ernie Merrick. To be honest, he always put study before football, and I think that's important for any kids that are listening or aspire to be footballers. How important your study is, and that gives you a foundation to go and do other things and have a chance at having a career. I was fortunate enough to be. I was on the Players Association executive for 5 years as a player, and it was through that where they pushed me to do the diploma of football business, which I did, and it was a good course because it gave you a basic understanding of football, and all your business research and analysis is on football clubs and academies around the world. So it was a way of studying, but also an enjoyable way because you were passionate about what you were studying. So if anyone's out there that's interested in it, it's definitely a good one.
Just before we do wrap up, is there a short piece of advice you'd have for the young regional players out there?
Yeah, I mean, from my experience, it's probably just believe in yourself and back yourself, because although we may not have the, I suppose, technical ability of the guys who probably get the higher level coaching in the city, we make up for it in other ways, and we're pretty determined, and we know how to crack in, and we're competitive. I still remember when I went to it was my first Joey's camp, under 17 Australia camp, and a few of the boys who ended up becoming my good mates, they were calling me Westy. Like, oh, I remember you, you're the Westy. And I was like, at that time, I was like, far out, like I'm with the big boys now, and I've got to sort of, adapt. But it's funny how you look up to these guys, but you are on the same level. And then I was fortunate enough to go past a lot of them, and it's just weird how it sort of all turns out.
I guess if you can put your Adidas loyalty to the side, are you Messi or Ronaldo fan?
You can't ask me that. Look, I'm Messi. I sort of always have been Messi. I don't really like the way Ronaldo sort of carries on, and I do like the way how Messi just sort of gets on with it. But I don't. What I don't like how people compare them, because they are two phenomenal athletes. And you watch the Jordan documentary at the moment, and you just see what an athlete and what a competitor, and what a desire to be the best. And then you look at those two guys, and we're lucky to have grown up enjoying football and being able to watch two of the all-time greats. So you just have to admire them for what they've done and who they are.
What he's saying, Kyle, is now that Messi's won, we've got to stop asking that question.
What's that?
Now that Messi's won the poll, we've got to stop asking that question. Look, Ado, thanks for your time. We're happy to clarify that your first club you played with is Newtown, so that's a positive. We appreciate the sharing the journey. We certainly appreciate your advice that you've been able to provide. And thanks very much for coming on to our show. And we certainly hope you find some time to get your Rooney shirt on the wall soon. Good luck in the future. Best of luck with your family, and hopefully you do well in your new job at Adidas. So thanks very much.
Thanks, guys. And like I said, if there's ever any players or aspiring players that ever need a hand or anything, feel free to reach out, because I think us country guys stick together a little bit, and it's always good to see some guys coming out of the area and having some success.
Thanks for that. Really
Thanks,
appreciate it.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Adrian.